Hola, qué gusto estar con ustedes hoy. Oh shoot, this is in English, right? All right, let me put that into Google Translate. Hang on. Qué gusto estar con. I like to be with you. That's weird. Why would I come out and say that? Let me tell you, Google Translate, don't use it in important situations or for your Spanish homework. Sometimes it doesn't work. I built my business out of the ability to understand what someone is trying to say in one culture and what the other person needs to hear in another culture. Through translation, translating words, translating linguistic situations, translating cultural differences, but most importantly, translating nuances, different nuances in business. I want to challenge everybody because there's probably some students here thinking, can I go into business for myself? Should I go work for someone? You know, we all have something that we're really, really good at, and we don't even realize it. It's something that's part of our lives. And who knows, maybe we do it better than anyone, and we can make a career out of it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story and how I came to own my own company. So I grew up in central New Jersey in a bilingual household. My mom was from Ecuador. She came to the US when she was about 20. She spoke English, but you know, she didn't really use it all the time until she moved here. My dad's American. So from the time I was born, I was spoken to in both languages all the time. Spanish, English, Spanish, English. I think in both languages. And I became like the household translator between relatives, then to people in the outside world. Then it was cultural differences. I had to really explain certain things to my mom, like, that's not how we do things here. You know, you gotta work with me. The best story is I bring home a permission slip. We had this big cross-country basketball travel trip, and I bring home this big permission slip with all this legalese and places to sign and things like that. And she says, I give it to her, and she looks at it, and she's like, ay, why can't I just go to the coach and say, she can go? And I was like, no, you gotta sign this thing. My dad was on a business trip. I was like, you gotta sign this thing or I can't go. Like, they didn't have permission slips in Ecuador in the 50s. I get it. But you gotta work with me. So all my life, it was those cultural differences, the language, the situations, and that doesn't work there, that doesn't work here, that works there, that works here. So I knew I had something different. I knew I had the language skills and the cultural bridging of those two gaps. So I go to grad school and I say, all right, I'm gonna use my languages in some way. So I come out, I start working for a company, a big global company, and I start realizing there's this whole business where there's investors on Wall Street and there's companies in Latin America that are trying to tap that capital. There's CEOs that are coming to New York, and yeah, they speak English, but it's never perfect. And these investors, they're demanding a certain behavior or performance or words, information. So I work for this company, and one of my first experiences is my clients, that's me in the back with the short hair and the round face. 20 years ago, I'm at the New York Stock Exchange with the client, and they grab me and they say, go, you have to translate for him. He doesn't speak any English. So there I am, I didn't even have time to tell my family that I was gonna I'm gonna be on the bell. There's millions of people watching this on TV. So I was hooked. I was like, I can do this. I can definitely do this. I can help these guys. So working for this big global company, I realized they didn't care about Latin America. They were worried about the US. There was companies coming out like Amazon, right? So they were worried about that market. There were companies in Europe that were so much bigger. They didn't care about Latin America. So what I do, I said, you know what? I can do this on my own. So I partnered with someone who's just like me, an American girl grew up in a Spanish-speaking household with a business degree and nothing to lose. And we started this company 20 years ago. So we start i-advize. And since then, we've worked with dozens and dozens of CEOs, helping them to communicate to Wall Street in English, with all those nuances, with all the accounting differences, the legal differences. But then the cultural differences are huge. So the translating has always been easy for me. But let me tell you, in Mexico, they love using figures of speech. All the time they use figures of speech. And imagine translating some figures of speech. Let me give you some examples. So I'm in a meeting between a CEO of one of the biggest companies in Mexico and a fund manager with $100 billion in assets to invest. And he asks, well, what's going to happen with the NAFTA renegotiation? And he says, the CEO says, well, let's see which side the iguana chews on. I'm sorry, what? What he's really trying to say is, well, let's see where the problem stems from. So I have to, okay, well, this is what he was trying to say. Or they say, wow, you've been doing great. How are you going to grow 20% again next year? And he says, we cannot sleep on the flowers. I'm like, what? Oh my God. We can't rest on our laurels, right? Or the other one is, they say, well, wow, you're going to expand to this new market? Like, how do you know you're going to do so well in this new market? And they say, well, the parrot is green wherever it is. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't. It's so fun. But those are the fun parts about the business. The cultural differences. I'll go back to my title slide. The cultural differences are also there, for sure. You have Wall Street investors that are demanding transparency and openness and how are you going to make money? And you have CEOs who, look, they've been spending their career building a business. Maybe they're a Coke bottler. Maybe they have an oil company. They're oil guys, right? And they come here and they really have to adapt, or they're not going to get the capital. They're not going to raise the funds to build a new plant, to hire more people, to contribute to those societies. So I really feel like the importance of the translation, the importance of the cultural bridging, we've helped a lot of companies raise money and give back. And it's built a better future for the region. If you recall the picture, the chubby face with the short hair, I was so happy to recently, I rang the bell for my own company. So that meant so much. And I think it speaks to, if you do have this one skill that you're so good at, if you have this one thing that you can do better, that little voice in your head is like, I know I could do this better than my boss. I know I have an idea that they're not doing it. Maybe entrepreneurship is the way to go. I strongly encourage it. I encourage it for our girls out there. And, I'm a working mom. I love what I do. And I hope I can inspire you to be an entrepreneur. So thank you.